Hi, I'm Laura Brunkala.
And I'm Jenny Skiffington.
And this is Propicks. Anora.
Best Picture winner. Sweeping all of the Oscars.
Amazing. So we got the pleasure of going to a industry screener for this one. It was DGA. We were at the DGA, yeah. I think, yeah. So we went to a screener for it. We're going to share some footage of that with you guys later.
It was amazing Q&A with the actress and the producer. Yes.
Yeah, writer, director. So it's going to be really, really cool to share that with you guys. It was a really fun event. We had a great time.
It was awesome.
So let's talk comps. Anora's a little bit tricky for comps because this is a little bit more... It's so interesting to me that it won Best Picture because it's more on the indie side almost.
Isn't that an amazing thing? Like, indie film, it was only $6 million budget. Like, compared to some of the huge studio films, it's always exciting to see the underdog kind of have a moment to shine. And I'm like, more indie film.
Yeah. Budget does not necessarily mean like great story. You can make really good stories, like the A24 thing. We talked a lot about how they're kind of doing really original stories, and they find writers who are telling compelling, totally new, not reboots, not fairy tales, just totally different.
Absolutely. And sometimes constraints make you more creative at the end of the day. Like, you have to find creative solutions around things, and then you have these like amazing discoveries that you wouldn't if just everything was at your disposal.
Yeah, and they even did talk in the budget in the Q&A. They were talking about how they had to do a lot of guerrilla shots, and they were just going in restaurants. And okay, so we were talking about comps, and it is, like we said, it's hard to find comps for this because it is kind of like an original story.
It's a very unique piece, which I think is why it got so much attention. In some ways, it feels like a Cinderella story, so you have thoughts of like Pretty Woman, but then it goes in a very different direction.
Yeah, it almost does have that vibe in the beginning because of this the Cinderella vibe.
Exactly.
It's like Cinderella gone bad.
Right, it feels like almost like two movies. The first half feels like one movie, and then the second half feels like another.
But then also, okay, so you haven't seen this yet, but Your Monster that came out this year, we're going to watch that. Jenny's going to see it, but it has that same kind of indie vibe in it. It starts off almost Beauty and the Beast type of vibes.
Oh, very cool.
It has kind of that, like, backstory of that vibe, but it's a totally different level, kind of like this movie is. So it's so funny because we're talking about how original it is, but like you can have the sentiment of a fairy tale, but go a very different way with it.
Right. So the one movie that keeps coming to mind after I saw this is, well, for one thing, they did shoot it on film, which gives it like a really cool 70s look. Yeah. But there was something so 70s about it. It really reminded me of the film Midnight Cowboy.
Oh yeah, we talked about that when we got home.
With Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. I would say that it's the closest in tone, even though they're not exactly the same. Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah, and then we talked about
and the ending is so like,
yeah. And this is a cool movie because I'm trying to think of like other movies where you get a pure slice of life. It's like literally starts on her and ends on her, and it's really just this like piece of her life, this like journey that happens in her life, and it's just this little mini chapter that you get to just come in on and see.
Yeah, like fly on the wall. We're just in it, kind of jumping in cold, but we're there throughout the story, like with her, just like, okay, this is where we're at.
Yeah, and it's funny because it has those like 70s, 80s vibes. Oh my gosh, you know what? I turned on the other day, was just by accident or by whatever happens, and it's like Taxi Driver.
There's another similarity there. I think it has to do with the tone and the cinematography and the writing. Even though the story's not quite there, Taxi Driver, Midnight Cowboy, it has that like 70s cinema feel to it. Which is really cool for a movie that was coming out in 2024.
Lots of like moody night shots and like in the strip club, just like the vibe of the neons and the undertones and this kind of, it's a strange story set in kind of a seedy. Yeah. All elements are kind of seedy.
Such an atmosphere, which is like, I feel like a lot of movies in the 70s had that like kind of seedy element.
Oh gosh.
But I think that's why so many people that are like really into 70s cinema really love this movie.
Yeah, the tone of it too. So just since we're already going down that road, the camera work is really brilliant. We see some really cool steady cam shots in the club, and there was a lot of
moving through,
like moving pieces, good set coordination.
Yeah,
the lighting is very specific in this scene.
Definitely.
There's some parts where they're on like a private plane versus like the like nightclub versus dark, Las Vegas
like
versus
a diner at night. Running around looking for Yvonne. So, a lot of really cool visuals. The cinematography was amazing.
One of my favorite things about this, too, this little technical thing that I haven't really heard anyone talk about, and it's such an editor thing, is, like, early in the movie, she's standing outside the strip club talking to her friend, and Anora's, and then they have a clip that's, the camera angle doesn't change, but they just cut to another cut, like another take. Wow. And I love that, because, like, everybody wants to do that, and you're like, I can't do that because of rules, and it's gonna feel clunky, and it didn't.
Right. No, I love when you can break the rules.
It's like it was like breaking the fourth wall for the first time or something. I was like, wow, it's so great that I believe, did Sean Baker edit it too?
I think he said
he did, and I love that. Because there was another film that we said, Cato Lake was one of the writers edited it. And I just really love when people who write or direct or whatever, the creators take control of the editing, because it's so different. There isn't a director's cut. That is the director's cut. Like
another film that has like a little break the rules shot is Eyes Wide Shut, the last Kubrick movie, which I feel like would be another similar kind of like a comp to this movie in some ways.
Yeah, in some ways. Like it's
the
dark,
twisty, dark underbelly adventure that kind of takes you on the things that are not quite as they seem. Yeah.
Great stunt work on this too. There's a ton of stunt scenes.
There's a lot of fighting. Yes.
Tons of fighting and like breaking stuff
and which didn't they say she did all her own stunts?
Yeah, she did her own stunts.
Her own dancing. She had the accent dialed in. There's a lot going on.
Speaking to cast, like Mikey Madison was amazing, and that she really kind of took on the whole world of this character.
She definitely owned the character. She transformed into Anora.
Yeah, even if you guys have seen or haven't seen it, like there is that scene with that little choreographed dance. She like dances for her guy.
Yeah.
And they said that it was just supposed to be a quick couple shots, and she did this. She choreographed and
prepared it on her own and like came to set with it.
Like full cabaret dance. And they're like, okay, let's see it. And they were all just like blown away.
You want to see? Yeah, it's amazing.
Really cool. Really cool. Yeah.
And then the newcomer, the standout newcomer to me though was the man who played Igor.
Yeah.
Yoran Borisov.
Yes.
A strong, silent presence, but the on-camera presence was the chemistry with Anora. Oh my gosh. And then the final sequence where it all kind of comes together.
I love the like tension in the room between them. It fills the room. Like it fills it. When feeling fills the space and creates the atmosphere, which is what he does.
Absolutely. and like he has there's like a gentleness to him where I feel like he's the only one who truly sees her.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting dynamic because he's also the one, like kind of kidnapping her and holding her down.
Baby reindeer, which we just did. We talked about how like the criminal in that sequence also has this side where
they're the one who sees
they see the person in their truest form.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was great, and Yvonne also. He was fantastic. Just perfect casting, perfect for that role.
Mark Edelstein as Yvonne, right? Yeah, really, really good casting, and really. Like, you love to hate him, hate to love him, and love to love him all at the same time.
Yvonne is Yvonne. Yeah, you're just like, okay.
I feel like everyone in life, like, this also speaks to writing. Like, everyone in life knows someone like that. That's, like, this total wild card.
Sort of just, like, flaky out there.
Do whatever you want. Whatever serves your own purposes. You don't care about anyone, like, but they're a good time. They're, like, fun to be around.
Right. And how tragic that Anora, like, really is, like, just feels this intense loyalty towards him. And she's
Yes.
like, he's gonna feel that way towards me too. I know it.
Oh my gosh, young love and that like undying belief that that person's gonna come through, and not being able to see the writing on the wall when you're like in the situation.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has gone through that in some form, but especially women.
Yes. Yes.
It was totally not what I expected.
Right.
And I remember, like, when I was walking out, you were on the other side of the theater. There was, like...
Oh, yeah, we had to sit in different spots because it was so packed out. Yeah.
Full. And this is before anyone knew it was going to be Best Picture. But there was a guy walking out next to me, and he was like, "Did you like it?" And I was like... I mean, I'm really sad, but, like, yeah, I liked it. And then he was like, "I'm not sad." And I was like, "Well, you've never been a 20-year-old woman." So.
Yeah. It was so heartbreakingly accurate and tragic and real. And
I just feel like even if it's not this, because, like, circumstances are extenuating in the story for sure, but even if it's not in that context, every young woman that I know has been through something that's affected her in that way, that total belief in the guy that kind of doesn't care about you. And I'm sure guys have that experience too, but speaking as two women, it's such a familiar story.
Definitely.
Disappointing.
And thinking that, like, oh, this is it, this is my person, and everything's coming together, and then just having that rug pulled out completely.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really feel engaged the whole time. There were some times that I felt that things could be cut, but you loved all the cuts. You loved the slow.
So I'm such an old film nerd. I love slow, silent, like building. Yeah. But I know that I'm like a rare one with that.
Rare bird.
But,
the slow burn.
The slow burn.
And I think there are some things that I felt like I was getting like beat over the head a little bit with some parts of it.
Let's get to the next.
Well, because it is an adventure. It's this action adventure, and you're like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? I want to know what's gonna happen. But that's also a testament to building tension and like wanting immediate answers. We live in like an instant gratification society now, so these movies they take you on a different journey.
It adds to the frustration. Like that whole sequence where they're looking for Yvonne lasts quite a long time. A lot of people are like, that lasted a long time. But maybe from Sean Baker's perspective, maybe it's because they're frustrated looking for him. Yeah. They're feeling frustrated. So now the audience, we're feeling frustrated.
Especially Anora. Because like it is, I mean, there is something to be spoken about how long something like this particular journey feels, and when you're in a situation like that, it does feel like it's forever. And I think you're supposed to feel a lot of the emotions and sentiments that she feels on this journey, and that was one of like, oh my god, can we get to the next thing? Right. She is totally, her character is stuck in like that.
She's stuck in that. And you know that feeling when you're like, the person is not answering your phone calls, you're going straight to voicemail, and you're like, where are they? Searching for them through the whole city.
Yeah. Oh, we've all been there. Straight to voicemail. Where are you? And I love Mikey Madison. She's just really good at like creating a character who you see these little cracks of like emotion and stuff, but there's so many walls up.
Right, she is putting on such a brave face the whole time until that final sequence when she finally breaks and the pressure is released, and she can just break down and process like everything that's happened and the disappointment.
And I think that's what the audience is feeling the whole time, so it is a relief to finally see her get into that with you, and then you see like all of her humanity, because you're like, this poor girl. Oh, yeah. It's a good film, but a tough watch.
Yeah. It's definitely a little tearjerker.
Yeah. But then there's like really fun sequences and funny parts too. There is some dark humor in this, which I really enjoy, like levity within. And
it's like an adventure, you know, they're like in Vegas and they're running around and there's all this money, and it's then the parents even coming. Like, it's quite an adventure.
Yeah, and then you get to see Anora's, like, spunk on full display with the parents and seeing that. Gosh, I love just what a layered character she built, because she's so sweet when she first comes in, and she's so, like, she has all these dimensions, and then I feel like you said, you only see her true self.
At the very end.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's holding her breath and trying to be strong the entire time.
And then there's just this, like, exhale. And, like, Oh my god, the way it just ends while she's in that moment is like, whoa.
With the snow softly falling or something.
Yes.
Yeah, so sad.
So let's talk a little bit about Sean Baker, who wrote and directed this. I think it's really interesting because it's a feminine story. It's really, this story is a female story. It's a story of a woman. And he did a great job writing it.
Yeah, I know, like it definitely feels like it's coming from a female perspective. I wonder what kind of research or input he had. Yeah.
It makes me wonder, like, what. So we get a lot of answers at Q&As, but sometimes I get left with more questions. Like, is it a family member? Is it a friend? Like, who does he know
What's
that
the
went
inspiration?
through? Yeah, and it just really astounds me when men write stories that make me go like, oh, being a 20-year-old girl. And I don't know, maybe it's through watching his own friends do this to people or whatever it is, you know.
And I know he collaborates with his wife a lot, and so maybe she has some input.
Yeah, she was very involved. All of her insight on the producer side was really cool to hear. She was really fascinating and clearly very much cared. And I loved hearing, they talk a lot about like sitting in their living room and editing. Like they don't go into like a studio.
It feels very indie.
Yeah.
So indie.
It feels like us. That's what we all do. We sit around and read our scripts together and edit together. And hey, can you watch this? Do you have any ideas? Does this look good? You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of music in this.
Yeah.
Just like nightclub music.
Yeah, there wasn't
specific
like
moments.
soundtracky stuff. Yeah.
No, it was like atmospheric, real world music, which was cool. That's like a cool use of sound in its own.
Right. Yeah. It didn't have like necessarily like song moments. It was just sort of like this ambient, atmospheric. So congratulations to Anora and Sean Baker and the entire team, because independent film, it is so cool to see independent film having moments and shining, because I think it's the future. The studio system is only pumping out, you know, sequels, prequels, like whatever.
12 of the same movie.
Guaranteed audience members.
This is so indie. It's just so bare bones. It's like, go see it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, keep making movies, you guys. You don't need giant budgets. $6 million is pretty low in our world.
Yeah, for what they were able to accomplish, that is impressive.
Yeah. So we'll cut to some really cool clips of the event we went to. Q&A with Sean Baker,
Mikey,
and
Samantha,
his wife, and one other producer. So enjoy that, and we'll see you when you get back.
Validation's gonna be by that true choice.
Best Actress nominee Mikey Madison. And writer, director, editor, producer Sean Baker. Full house, guys.
Yeah.
Still going
Hi,
strong.
everybody. Hello. Thanks for coming out.
Sean, how does a 4-time personal astronomy sound right now for you?
You know, it's incredible. You know, I'm still processing it. I'm still processing Can, so it's going to be a while until I can fully process this one. Yeah, it's wonderful, and the fact that I think the editing thing means a lot to me. The editing knob.
You make your films independently. This was your largest scale film, and by that I mean well under $10 million. And I am curious, going from Cannes to where we are now, the incredible success this film has had, what it means to you that it is this movie. You've been making films for many years, how you've sort of wrapped your head around this film receiving such a intense embrace.
Oh, well, that's difficult to answer. Let's just say I had the most incredible team. And so I really am happy that the incredible work that they did is being recognized, you know?
Mikey, how about for you? How has the last 6 months, 7 months been on this ride with this film? I would imagine even just getting to talk about it and experience people's reactions deepens your relationship to it a little bit.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's been so interesting. I've never quite done anything like this before, and we've been able to go to so many interesting places and premiere our film in different countries and get such a wide variety of responses. And so I'm really lucky to have this experience with this film in particular, because it's one that's always been very, very special to me.
Samantha and Alex, I wonder if you could maybe take us back to the beginnings of mounting this film, what the initial challenges were in terms of production, in terms of getting this thing off the ground, making it as you needed to make it, because even though, again, this was a slightly larger scale for you guys and you've worked together before, it's still an independent film that you had to really fight to get the vision as you hoped for.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we never have enough money on these films, so we know going in that we're gonna have to figure it out and get creative, and so yeah, we budgeted as best we could, knowing we were gonna have to find room, you know, in every phase, get creative at every phase. But as Sean sort of, you know, touched on, we just had such an incredible, committed crew.
Yeah, working with Sean, there's always a lot of surprises along the way that are really hard to budget for. But we also think that with that room that there is for surprises and serendipity, that's what also kind of makes the movie special. It was a joy. At the end of every day, we would go home and be like, oh my gosh, we did this day. And then we wake up for the next one.
What were some of the biggest surprises that Sean threw at you this time around?
One was, there were so many. But one of them was, there are Russians in this film, but he wanted Russians from Russia at the beginning of a war, which was a challenge. There was a shot that it was from the air. It was funny. He was like, I want this one from the air. And then we were like, oh, okay. And he's like, but I don't want a drone. I want a helicopter because I want it to feel like it's 1974. And we said, okay. What else?
Yeah, so then I got up there in a helicopter with a camera operator, and that's not a joke. We actually did that, and we got the shot, and it worked,
That even though these films are contemporary and these stories are about now, I want it to feel like classic Hollywood. I want it to feel like 1974, the best year of cinema.
And this film has some direct references to classic films.
There are similarities to Coming to America. Galena coming off that airplane is very similar to James Earl Jones saying, take me to the Waldorf Astoria. It's stuff like that. And I think it's just because, these films meant a lot to me growing up, and I still watch a film a day. I'm a cinephile. And as a filmmaker, it's hard not for those influences to come out in some way.
How have you figured out being an actor's director, figuring out the relationship you want to have with your actors, and then how did that inform your work with, say, Mikey and Anora?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Mikey and I really had a lot of time in prep to really talk about things and break it down. And then we also had a wonderful time rehearsing, which is something that now we buy time for to allow for way more rehearsal and prep, just to give us that one-on-one, to give me the one-on-one with my actors and have time to workshop so that we know they know their characters, I know their characters before we start, before day one.
How would you, Mikey, describe Sean as a collaborator on this movie?
I've never worked with someone quite like Sean, and I mean that in a really complimentary, positive way. He is a true collaborator. He really welcomed me into the making of this film in a bigger way than I had ever been asked to be a part of before. He really cared about my opinion. He wanted me to be a part of lots of aspects of making this movie. I mean, I could keep talking and talking about Sean as a director because he's really one of the most special people I've ever worked with. He has a wicked sense of humor that is really just like makes me laugh, and he's very kind, sensitive director, very like gentle director. Sorry if that's embarrassing, I don't know. And just very trusting. I never felt that way. I was always willing to take extreme risks or really go for a joke, and if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but at least you've tried, you know? Or whatever you feel in the moment you have to do. I felt free enough and comfortable enough to do that. I knew there would be no judgment, it would just be support.
You can feel, for all of the actors, this incredible space, I think, for you guys to discover your characters, try different things. I wonder, even on the production side, how you guys experience giving the actors the space within the limited constraints you have to discover and to find these performances over time.
Well, that's the luxury of time. That's the reason why it was so important for us to use as much, to get money, more money than we had before, to be able to have that time so that the actors could spend time with each other, spend time in the environments, work with Sean, you know, and not feel rushed of like, you can only do one take and then that's it.
Yeah, she wasn't sleeping. Like I was like just trying to make sure that she was like, you know, she was good, you know, but I don't know, fucking warrior here, you know. Like,
Mikey she never complained. Sometimes like it'd just be like, are you okay? She'd be like, uh-huh. And you're just like, really? Are you? You could tell me. She's like, I'm okay. You know? But
no,
like
she was good. I don't know. She
fingernails.
did it, yeah. She always came
Mikey did her own stunts.
She did,
All her own
yeah.
stunts.
She insisted on doing all of her own stunts. She listened to the accent and the Russian language, which was hard enough. But then I remember the day that she came in and she said, you know, because the one scene where she's dancing, it literally was a scene that was written. She goes to Yvonne's house and she shows she
shows off her dancer's flexibility.
Yeah, that was it. That was like one line, and then Mikey comes in. She's like, "I prepared something. Do you want to see?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." She came in and it was like, "Oh my god, this is
I choreographed
crazy."
a dance. For
Yeah,
this
and
scene.
like a professional, and we're just like, this needs to be focused
Yeah,
on. It
that's
was incredible.
That's actually that shows the collaboration, because that scene would have been 10 seconds, and instead, what Mikey presented to us, we looked at it, and then Drew and I knew that we had to go a different direction and make a set piece out of it, a music video almost.
I was going to say, you take opportunities when you get them. Like, we were 9 months early when we were first doing our first trip out to Brighton Beach. We were out there, and it just happened to be that Yura was in town, so we brought Yura out to Brighton Beach and did the whole tour, and we were in Tatiana's, which is this iconic restaurant on the boardwalk that we shot at. And suddenly he's the one swarmed, because they know his work from overseas. He's a star. And suddenly it was in that moment while everybody was taking photos, and we looked at the owner and we're like, can we shoot a movie here with him, please? So yeah, he got us that location.
I mean, for me, it's like making movies when I was in high school. It feels like that, like just like, you know, just staying up late on the weekend and like editing a movie with your friends. Like that's. But I think that's.
That's what Simon said at the Spirit Awards with Red Rocket.
Yeah,
what did he say? The most.
He said it was like a glorified student film.
Glorified student film.
Like, Quan is a night editor, so usually he doesn't start until 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So we go into the morning. That's
we
why
work till dawn. Dusk till dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about getting to the last scene of the film. I think so much of the power of your performance is we see this very outspoken character, says what she thinks, but she's still holding a lot inside. And I know you talked about feeling yourself holding a lot inside, getting to toward that scene. What did it feel like to have that emotional release, and what was the experience like for you of actually getting to that emotional release?
Yeah, well, you know, she's I always thought of Annie as someone who, like, yes, she's outspoken, but it's all a protective layer. Everything she's doing is to protect herself and how she really feels, which I think is a lot of heartbreak and frustration and vulnerability. But, you know, she's keeping it in. She has this hardened outer shell on top. She doesn't want anyone to see that crack open, because I think she's also trying to hold on to, like, just a bit of dignity as well. And so for that last scene, she's gone through so much over the course of a short period of time, and she hasn't, like, expressed any of it, really. And so coming to this last scene, it's this shared moment between two people who are finally able to communicate in an honest way, but just without any words spoken. And so, like, how do you go about filming something like that? And, you know, Sean and I had many conversations about this scene, and it was one that I was really nervous about, because I wanted to do her justice. I wanted her to have that moment of release, and I think I was just so frustrated and, like, stuck in my head about it that there came a point during the filming of that scene, which, like, took many days for lots of different reasons, where I was like, I just got out of the car and I was like, I need to talk to Sammy. And Sammy and I started having a conversation, and I remember I was, like, actually, like, crying tears, and I was like, I can't cry. And she was like, okay, well, you're crying right now. She's like, but let's talk about something. And I was like, you know, I think I just need to ground myself in a different way. I need to pull something from my own personal life that I think is just gonna, you know, sharpen that internal razor blade so that I can express everything. And yeah, it's talking about this scene, it's like, I feel like my face gets hot and I get sweaty talking about it, because it was really vulnerable, and especially playing a character like Annie, like, as Mikey, I'm a very outwardly emotional person, but she is not. It's only in those private moments you get to see that. And so, you know, Sean is in the back seat of the car with the monitor, Yura's there, and I was like, gosh, I think I need to pull something. And so I have this very lovely voicemail that my dad sent me from years ago that I have kept, and he sent to me just at a time that I really needed to hear specific words from my father. And I was like, okay, Sean, we'll hold the phone and you'll play it right before we shoot the scene, and then we'll shoot it. And so, very embarrassing, because I'm, like, sitting in a car with these two guys and listening to this voicemail my dad sent me. But I think it was actually kind of really beautiful, because it grounded all of us. I think it's for them to hear something so intimate and personal to me, for me to listen to it and then also have it shared with two people. It sort of just, it worked in this magic way and was able to, I don't know, just get me to a rawer place where we were able to shoot that scene, and it felt really, really real. I think I'm rambling now.
You did your justice in that moment, I think. Yeah.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that interview that we shared. Go see Anora if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah, and this is episode 7 for us. Welcome back, you guys, after our little hiatus. We hope you enjoyed the blooper reel.
That was amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
just know it happens every week.
Yes, every week there are behind the scenes bloopers.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next week for episode 8.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, follow, subscribe, all the things here. You guys can do it here. You can subscribe, and then to the channel. And then you can also follow us on Instagram at PropicksPod, and check out our Patreon. We're on Patreon. I think it's the same thing, at PropicksPod.
At PropicksPod.
Yes. So, yeah, that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Join us next week on Propicks.